weaponizing sex to push you into your carnal mind. They're weaponizing more than just sex, but I'm speaking about that at the moment. They weaponize it with pornography, they weaponize it with the culture and the way they bring us up. And they force you into your carnal mind. You overuse these precious fluids of your body. Jesus Christ. There's a poisonous caterpillar on my leg. Hey guys, so I was asked to speak about a very important topic and subject, and I've touched on it before in a Q&A video, I think, but I'll speak about it in more depth. And I think I'll do this more often, it's a feeling I've been getting, because I persistently use the term and the insistence that we must become disciplined. But sometimes I don't go deep enough into what that discipline should look like. And this question I was asked the topic I was asked to speak on is on masturbation and pornography, and all the views that I have with regards to this. Now, I'm going to incorporate within there sexual immorality as well, because for certain those are a precursor to that with other human beings. Now, I first of all want to state that don't by any means get me wrong as if I'm saying I'm an expert and I've completely mastered this. The two most difficult things for a human being to master are their relationship with sex and the sexual impulse of the body, and their relationship with their impulse for food. Now, both are absolutely necessary for the survival and the continuance of the human vehicle and the human species as a whole. We must reproduce and we must eat. And for all they are our natural impulses, we can sometimes overindulge in them, misuse them, and other people can misuse the fact that we have those impulses to their own benefit, be it for profit, be it for control, be it for manipulation. And I'm going to get on to many things in this, but one thing I want to speak about is as well within there, the weaponization is a term I would use of pornography in our modern society. And many people might think that's a very strong terminology to use, but weaponized is how I perceive it at this point, and I'll get into why. So I don't want to put myself out as some sort of expert, as I say. I don't want to say I've got this completely mastered, because this is not going to be a truthful presentation if I do so. Now, I had the belief that I had a good lid on everything, and I went through a period of abstinence. Now, if you look around on the internet at the moment, there are many young men who are participating in movements called NOFAP. And NOFAP is basically a very polite way of saying that you are abstaining from... There's always something when I start recording a video, like someone repetitively banging on metal in the background. Great. Just what I need. Right. I think I'll just leave that in. I was going to start again, but I'll just pick up where I left off with whoever it was banging on a piece of metal repetitively in the background. The amount of... I should do outtakes, because the amount of videos I start and stop with, really, it's quite unbelievable. NoFap is it's a way of saying abstinence, so sexual abstinence, or in this particular case, it's not actually sexual abstinence, abstinence from pornography and masturbation and mental fantasies included within there. And this movement is a beautiful thing, and it actually shows you just how damaging masturbation and pornography can be. And now I'm not going to label masturbation and pornography at the same point there, but together combined, how very damaging they can be for the human for the young human men on this planet, and perhaps even women as well. Well, yes, even women as well, but men in a different way. Now, first and foremost, as I wanted to say, I'm not fully disciplined on this. I went through a period of abstinence where I did not ejaculate or masturbate or have sexual intercourse with another human being for a very long time. And I went for around about 1.5 years of my life altogether, was the longest period without anything. And I did that whilst I was here building what I was building. And I did so for my own spiritual wants and needs, and also because I had no one in my life, and also I was eating differently and I didn't really feel much of a need for it, to be honest. So I liberated myself in a way. But I can tell you that on my journey whilst doing that, I found a very strong relationship with my sexuality. And by that I mean I found control over it. I found discipline over it. But I also found benefits. I found a lot of mental clarity. After around about 6 months, I had a lot of mental clarity. I had a lot of energy that I didn't have before. I could run more often. I could sometimes run on a morning and run on a night. I had so much energy. I could stay up and work later, and I didn't have to sleep as much. I really gained a lot of energy. Now, a lot of great minds in our history, recorded history at least, and I'm sure history beyond there, certainly ancient sages as well, and yogis and so on, have practiced abstinence for this reason. But many great minds say that it gives you more, it boosts your mental power. And some men in history even said that women were quite poisonous to the development of the knowledge and intellect. It's not women, it's the expelling your sexual energies is what they were referring to. Now, it does have some side effects. If you read about Tesla, everyone knows of Tesla's wondrous works, and he was quite an amazing human being, but not many people know that he also had a very peculiar, certainly not in the form of bestiality or anything like that, but he had a very strong and poetic and romantic way of describing a pigeon that he had. And this happened with myself. Everything I could speak of in a loving, poetic way. Your life comes to a point where you're in such deep meditation and practicing abstinence on top of that, that even a simple leaf falling from a tree gives you a moment of great meaning in your life. And what a wondrous way to live that is, to watch a branch sway in the wind and take great meaning from it, and see it as something very profound that's going on in front of you, instead of just background movement or background noise or just something that's gone on. Now, with that said, spiritually wise, as I say, abstaining from sex can definitely help to bolster and improve your spiritual practice and your focus. And above all else, it gives you a stronger relationship with your sexuality for future relations within society and with yourself as well. If you do wish to continue and participate in self-stimulation, it's good to have a healthy relationship with that rather than an unhealthy one. Now, I say within society as well, because what you have to realize, masturbation with pornography sets up something very terrible. Now, I did say some young men are very harmed by it, and some young men actually can't get erections due to pornography. I've been reading on the blogs, and I didn't realize the extent the damage was doing to some young men, but it's ruining their lives. They get erectile dysfunction because they program their minds from a young age with their phones, with the computer, that they need many different images to get an erection. And then when they finally meet a lovely young woman or a lovely young man, whatever's going on, they can't actually perform with that person because it's not enough for them. Their brain has been wired completely differently. Their brain is not wired in the way that a normal human being should be, that one person can satisfy you. And this is the dark, never-ending dark spiral of pornography, because of course pornography doesn't satisfy you. Otherwise you'd have one pornographic picture and one pornographic video on your computer, but people do not, as we know. So you just go into this spiral, and then when you meet someone, your body's already programmed to perform in a different way. And these young men are struggling to get erections without pornography due to this. And this is another benefit of them doing this NOFAP, is they're recovering from that problem because they're reprogramming their brain. And when they meet young persons as well, the likelihood of meeting a very wonderful person to spend the rest of your life with, I feel, is very slim with regards to what I know about synchronicity and aligning what needs to be, but even with regards to how you behave when you first meet someone. If you've been watching pornography which completely objectifies the opposite sex, then when you meet the opposite sex, you kind of have this background image in your subconscious that they're going to behave in this way, they're going to be very sexually active, and you're going to get to act out these sexual fantasies, and 99% of the time it's never going to happen. And it places an immediate barrier between the true union you can find with another human being. And I even say this is the case within my sexual life with Fritzi. Now, as I say, I don't claim to be an expert on this because I had a lid on it after abstinence for so long, but then I met a beautiful young woman, and of course we are intimate together. And I found a problem immediately, and Fritzi and I worked through it, that I was very overtaken by indulging by abstaining from sex for so long and then indulging in it. It became, I was thinking about it a lot more than what I wanted to be, and I was wanting to do it, not perhaps more than I wanted to be, but it was taking up too much thought space for myself. And this is where I began to understand certain parts of different religious traditions. Now, according to Christianity, I'm breaching the law of God because I am participating, or I am intimate with someone outside of wedlock. So soon I'll be married. Actually, less than 3 weeks I'll be married, so it's not a major deal to myself. But what I mean by that is, in our relationship, I've noticed that on the normal sexual level, Fritzi and I can say to one another, let's abstain from sex for this period of time. And whilst we do that, we find ourselves drawing closer in other ways. And when sex is there, it can actually stop you from getting closer in certain other different ways, emotionally and spiritually, and so on and so forth. And this is a barrier that we put up as persons who have indulged in too much masturbation or pornography, is sex is quite at the forefront, and you never truly get to know the person. And this is what I mean. I began to understand sex before marriage makes a lot of sense, that you would draw truly close to someone and bond in the soul before you would then put something in the area of your relationship that's going to perhaps distract you from drawing that close, because the more time you spend speaking, talking and bonding and holding one another in a non-sexual way, the closer you're going to get. Now, it's not the same for everybody, and you can bond with sexual intercourse as well. That's why we do it. We want to be close with the people we love, but many people want to do it because they're chasing the hit. Ultimately, they're chasing the orgasm, and this is where most people fall in line with pornography and masturbation. When you're watching pornography, you're creating dopamine releases in your brain. When you masturbate, you're creating dopamine releases as well. Your brain is wise. Your body is wise. It begins to understand, hey, you're releasing dopamine at a stronger level than you're supposed to. Dopamine is supposed to be released when you acquire something that you've worked hard for and achieved a goal, or endurance exercise, or indeed reproduction. Now, if you are just taking on lots and lots of dopamine hits from pornography and masturbation, you become a drug addict. Because just like a drug addict needs to take on more drugs to secrete more dopamine to get the bigger hit, your body starts dulling down the amount of dopamine it gives you because it knows, hey, this is not normal, this is out of balance. So what do you need to do? You need to seek more drugs. And if you're using pornography, you need to seek more pornography. You need to seek deeper pornography. You need to seek more harder types of pornography and different types, and this is what happens with the dark spiral of pornography, is the initial addiction you had of dopamine that felt good diminishes over time, so you need more and more and more, and you even need different types to try and just get the erection, as some of these young men I've read on the NOFAP blogs are facing. By the grace of God, this is not something I experienced whilst I was a young man using pornography and masturbation. Now, when you realize this is what is going on, and people are getting hooked on the dopamine hit, and you realize that spiritual sages have said abstinence from ejaculation or spilling your seed allows you to progress more spiritually, then you come to understand a certain way of the world. And when you look around at the pornography industry and you say, how is it, I know from being a young man, I use these things, to the shame of myself, I use them. How is it that when I was younger and looking at these things, there were thousands of websites with hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of free videos of pornography? Where are they making their money? And the adverts are all for little silly, tin pot companies who can't afford a lot of money to advertise. So where are they making their money from this industry? And this is where you get to the point where it's clearly not about profit. In that instance, it's not about profit in the least bit. What it's about, it's not profit, then what is it about? And the only thing you're left with is that it's about controlling. It's about saturating people into a hypersexualized state, which is something that I've mentioned before was designed in a cultural Marxist principle by the elitists who wish to control us, Freemasonic societies, Fabian socialists, people put it under one blanket of the Illuminati, however you want to call it. They weaponized sex with the sexual revolution. And this is documented by great minds you will have heard of, like Wilhelm Reich, using the principles of Freud. Freud, a man whose work I'm not so overly keen on, considering was it his son or grandson as a convicted paedophile? I mean, it says a lot. This is not a doctrine you want to be following. It's just not. Now, they weaponized this, and as I look around, pornography has been weaponized. It's hypersexualizing young men and women all over the planet. It's making you animals. You're not a human being. And thus, I stand wholeheartedly against pornography, digital pornography, any which way, shape or form. Now, I'm careful to say digital because there are ancient art forms on the planet that depict pornography that you probably in this day and age wouldn't get any sort of sexual stimulus from and just say it was now art. But digital pornography, anything, pictures, videos, so on and so forth, it does not belong in our society. It's not okay. It's not normal. It is not normal. And we raise our children embodied in this Luciferian lie that, hey, boys will be boys, girls will be girls. This is what we do. We have sex with random people. We masturbate. This is what we do. And this is so untrue. You come somewhere like this where families are growing up, many persons in the same room, they're not masturbating when they're sharing a bed. They have a completely different relationship with sexuality. Every European country I've gone to has a hand sign which imitates a man masturbating, and a swear word to go with it as an insult. Here it doesn't exist. And that doesn't exist because it's not part of the culture and the sexuality. Of course people do it, but in the most part it's not like it is in the West. Not like in school they tell you, yeah, it's normal for you to do that. Is it really normal for your child to go and lock themselves in the room and play with themselves most evenings? Now, of course, as I say, there comes a point of healthy and unhealthy, as with everything. And this is how I see it. If you can't stop, then you're addicted and it's unhealthy. So what you need to do is take a period of abstinence. Read these NOFAP things, just have a period of abstinence and stop ejaculating and masturbating, and with your spouse, tell them what you wish to do. Spend 3 months. Aim for 3 months. After a lifetime of ejaculating and orgasming, you should be able to do 3 months to find out, before you die, what would have happened if I did try that. And if you can do that, you'll come to realize a lot of the benefits, but you'll be able, if you wish to go back to it, you can go back to it as a healthy person, with a healthy relationship with it. If it's a daily thing and you're using pornography, cut it out forever. Just don't do it. If you're using fantasy and masturbation, again, there's something not quite right about using mental fantasy. If you can empty your mind and just enjoy the feeling and the pleasure of your body in whichever shape that is, which is ultimately Zen. You can do Zen tantric masturbation where you just enjoy it without any thoughts to stimulate you. Same with eating and walking and so on and so forth. Then do so. But if you need fantasy, then this is where I have begun in my later years to wonder about what is healthy and what is not, because I see many unhealthy relationships now with sex, predominantly in the Western nations, and it needs to stop, guys, because it's just not okay. Shouldn't raise our children to say, yeah, it's normal, you know, he's a boy, of course he's going to look at porn. No, it should be banned, actually, is what it should be, because of the disgrace it's creating within our society. People go out and they try to relive these behaviors. They objectify women, they objectify men. They have sex like animals and not like beings. And you know what, guys? Most women, they don't want animal sex all the time. They don't want... Some women might want it. Sometimes they want, you know, passionate and you know, hot and steamy sex. Some people want that. But every person you see on pornography, they want it rough. They want... And this is never how it's going to be. Most women in my life who I've been intimate with, more importantly, the one I'm about to spend the rest of my life with, it's about love and nurturing and caring and being there for one another and listening to one another's bodies. It's not about just using their body as an object of stimulus so you can reach a point of orgasm and then go off and do your thing. This is what a monkey in the forest does. We are beyond this. We are beyond this. So pornography, I feel, has been weaponized. Now, on every level, I feel it is being weaponized by persons who have embraced the Luciferian doctrine. Now, Luciferian Gnosticism is not to be mistaken with Christian Gnosticism. There are some schools of Christian Gnosticism which are similar to the Luciferian, but it's not to be mistaken, because in Luciferian Gnosticism, all you're going to do is hand yourself over to be indebted to Lucifer. The god of this world will give you the riches, give you the fame, give you the knowledge, give you the power when you hand yourself over to him in worship. But also what he will do is he will suppress, so as others can't enlighten themselves and see what is going on. And this is exactly what I see happening. The Luciferian Gnostics are weaponizing sex to push you into your carnal mind. They're weaponizing more than just sex, but I'm speaking about that at the moment. They weaponize it with pornography, they weaponize it with the culture and the way they bring us up. And they force you into your carnal mind. You overuse these precious fluids of your body. Jesus Christ. There's a poisonous caterpillar on my leg. It's as if Lucifer himself doesn't want me to make this video, ironically, it seems. So just, these caterpillars really hurt when they get, they didn't sting me, but they really hurt when they do, and it was just crawling over my leg. Tanzania, guys, Tanzania. Okay. Luciferian Gnosticism is that it's happy to force people into their carnal mind, to manipulate them, to make them weaker so as they become stronger. And as I've said, you can use fire to cook a meal, you can use fire to burn a house down. It doesn't make the fire bad, it makes the person using whatever it's using. But in the Luciferian doctrine, what you're doing is you're surrendering to the god of the material world. And you're asking for rewards from that god and ignoring the original source of creation. Now, I'll do a video on Luciferian doctrine, but these persons, they understand that they need to have an element of discipline. However, at the same time, there's something more to this that I want to speak about. Now, I have no problem at all in the decision and the point I've come to that they've weaponized pornography to mess up people, to mess them up. Now, part of the true origins of Christianity and Christian Gnosticism and the worship and the adherence to Christ is the Sacred Secretion. The secretion that travels from the base of your spine up to your pineal pituitary, and then in activation gives you a fully realized human vehicle who can commune with the field of self, and with it commune with the divine nature and all that entails. I participate in abstinence every month, even though I am intimate with Fritzy. Every month we participate in abstinence for the time when our moon is in our star signs. It's like a week and a half of the month. If you are looking into science, you'll see that the cerebral spinal fluid and, for instance, the semen from a man are very similar in their makeup. Expelling those liquids from your glandular system, because you have a glandular system that runs up your body, if you expel from one gland, you leave the other glands in a state of dead, and they must be topped up. And if they are not full, you can't realize yourself fully spiritually in perfect alchemical balance. You just cannot be that way. You can't be as effective as a human being as you can be. And this is what the Luciferian Doctrine wants. It doesn't want you to be effective human beings. It doesn't want you to tackle the suffering. It doesn't want you to tackle the poverty. It wants the suffering. This is what Lucifer needs. He wants the suffering. Because in the suffering, people crave the material to end the suffering. So they worship him in craving it. And this is ultimately what that is about. Now, we must refrain and have abstinence for that reason, to develop ourselves fully, spiritually, psychologically, intellectually, and emotionally. Now, what I want to say is, with regards to all of this, is that this is a foundation. Sex and masturbation is a foundation for sexual immorality. You spend the whole of your young life with all these fantasies. When you get older, you're going to be more easily programmed to lean towards these fantasic ideologies. And if you do meet someone who is hypersexualized and is not disciplined, then you might ruin something. You might ruin the heart of a loved one. I myself insisted upon having dominion over my sexual self after I harmed somebody. And I don't mean physically harmed them, I mean I emotionally harmed somebody by allowing something to happen whilst I was under the influence of drugs, which is not a defense, but I was at the time, with somebody else, and it hurt someone who I love. And when it hurt that person, I said, enough is enough now. It's time for me to change, because this has got a grip on me. This is not something I'm consciously choosing to do. My body is choosing to do these things. Now, if you set yourself up in that way to have more ease with sexual immorality when you're older, you open yourself up to a massive spiritual gateway and problem. Because when you do have sexual relations with someone, you do share a soul connection. I'm well aware, 100% positive of this. Without any shadow of a doubt, you share a soul connection. And this is spoken about in most spiritual scriptures, from Islam to Christianity. Even people in Christianity who are said to have raped people, inside the Bible, persons who have raped people, it says that their soul is burned into them because they create a soul tie. Now, these soul ties are a way of snatching energy from one another. And if you are being sexually immoral with many different people, you're going to snatch energy in a bad way, especially if they're all sleeping around and someone else is all sleeping around. You've just got this horrible combination of what the ancient times would call demonic energy. Modern times just call it intertwining with your electromagnetic fields and the repetition of behaviors that become addictions and habits and so on and so forth absorb into your aura or your field of energy. Or you become attached with spiritual entities from other people. Now, this ties into something very, very dark, and you've all heard about Luciferian cults and their obsession with paedophilia. Well, why do you think that is? Do you think it's just so they can be evil, or do you think they wish to try and gain some sort of energetic benefit from it? Now, I can't say that for certain because I'm not in... Hold on, that caterpillar's at my feet again. I can only read what I can read from Luciferian doctrine. You know, and it began with the Crusaders coming back and having secret knowledge, and then they hid it so as the church wouldn't kill them, and then you've only got recent knowledge like Blavatsky and so on and so forth to really get a grasp on what was going on with it. But it stands to reason that if you tie your soul with a negative energy, you can tie your soul to a pure energy as well. And this has often made me wonder if these horrendous stories that we hear about these sexual rituals and so on and so forth, which do take part here as well with the witch doctors and so on, is due to this, that there's a soul tie going on. But this is the importance of the soul tie, is that you don't want to be bonding with someone you don't know, and you don't know what they've got hidden within them. And thus, masturbation and pornography, or masturbation with pornography especially, is only going to set you up to become tied with more and more immoral people, because you're going to be open to experiences with people who you're not in love with and who you're not close with. And this is wrong for all of us. So, as a whole, humanity should have a healthy sexual relationship. If you're struggling with masturbation and you don't know how to stop, just stop. That's all you can do, is just stop. Stop watching the pornography. You might fail, but try again. You might fail, but try again. And train your eyes. Learn to train yourself, to discipline yourself, to be a man. Not to be a little boy who gets turned on at every sight of a piece of leg or a bit of cleavage, but be a man who trains his eyes, and when he meets a woman, doesn't even notice the shape of her because he's looking in her eyes, he's looking to her face. He can admire her beauty and say, oh, she has a very beautiful face, but he's not looking at her bum and her legs and so on and so forth. Train your eyes. When you meet a woman and you say, oh, and you look immediately at her other areas of her body, correct your eyes, say, hey, we're not supposed to be doing that. We're supposed to meet this person on a much deeper level than a piece of meat. So train your eyes. That's something I must mention within this video. So, with regards to masturbation, do a period of abstinence. Abstain. And in abstaining, find a good relationship with it. And if you insist that you must go back to it, which many people don't need to, I didn't need to. But if you insist that you need to go back to it, then go back to it. But go back to it more healthily. And if it gets to a point where you think, hold on a moment, I'm doing this every day again and I'm struggling to get an erection, so I'm thinking about putting pornography on, abstain again. Abstain. And keep doing it until you become the master of this meat vehicle that you're dwelling within. You are the light, not the light bulb. Don't let the light bulb deceive you into doing all it wants to do. It's a very beautiful light bulb. You should love the light bulb that you live within. But it can also run amok because it is part of the animal kingdom. But you can be more than that. That's what sets us apart. That's what gives us the opportunity to contemplate God. Is that we have the label being. Maybe that's thinking. Maybe that's I thinking too highly of humans. I don't know. So, my final thoughts. I've gone a little bit all over the place. I'm a bit distracted because I had the venomous, the poisonous caterpillar on my leg, so I'm kind of a bit. But masturbation, you can have a healthy relationship with. If you're doing it every day, just stop. Stop point blank. Pornography, never touch it. It's weaponized, it's Luciferian, it's used to hypersexualize you, it's used to weaken you. It's used to make you into a little boy who's stuck in his teenage years with too much need for dopamine going on. This is not befitting of a man. It's not. If you wouldn't be happy to speak about it at your family dinner table, don't do it. It's as simple as that. This is the best way to describe sin to people. If you're not happy to sit and chat with your granny about what you've done, then obviously you're not overly keen on what you've done. You're not fully confident in the fact what you've done is okay. That said, I don't think we should abstain completely, because we've also seen that certain religious sects where people have abstained have ended up interfering with young persons and so on and so forth. And I think that's because God gave us a sex drive for a reason. And I think had we all lived naturally without pornography, electronics and the media advertising and pushing our buttons to be more sexual than what we should be, and the programming from a young age with the word sex and lies in movies like The Lion King for our children, if you don't know about that one, then I think we would have all grown to have a normal sexual, healthy sexual relationship anyhow. We would have had a healthy love for our spouse, we would have had a healthy love and a want for procreation, and we wouldn't be viewing it the way that we are viewing it at the moment. And because we are hypersexualized, abstinence is required to gain dominion over it again. And then once you're from there, try and find a healthy relationship. If you want to masturbate from time to time, you can. It helps to prevent prostate cancer, I've read. So, it can't be all that bad. But just don't use it daily as a necessity. Just don't use it daily as a necessity. And if you're using pornography, just never use it again. Make the decision. Say, I'm not doing this anymore. So that's all I've got to say, I think, on masturbation and pornography. If anyone would like me to say any more, drop me a comment below, and I'm quite happy to. And also, if anyone has any other topics that they want me to talk about, put a comment below, and I'm happy to make a video about them. Hopefully I'll get it done without noisy generators, people banging on bits of metal, and poisonous caterpillars next time. Okay, much love guys. Bye.